Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Mouth of the Tyne live with. Tonight we've got one of our own, STEVE WRAITH. Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
How are you, mate? Sad night, really, mate. But I know we ummed and ahed about coming on tonight.
We did.
I think it's only right that we do it, and
Yeah.
do what the Queen would have done in essence, and that is just plough on. What a sad day it is for the country, man.
It is. It's a real shocker because obviously with the summer celebrations, what we had, I think everybody was just in this mindset that she's going to live forever. That's how I always thought. You never really thought about it, did you? It's just she just goes on and on and on. But today, sad day. We've lost the Queen, and we said we did. Like Steve said, we didn't know whether we were going to do the show, but we decided to do it, and we're gonna devote this to the Queen's memory, Queen Elizabeth II, our Queen, our Majesty. Rest in peace.
Yeah, and rest in peace, mate. Rest in peace.
For,
God save the King.
God save the King now, yes. So it's only right that we touch on that after a, sad afternoon. Somebody that we've all known throughout our lives. Like I put a tweet out earlier saying our earliest memories was, when we were kids. Who's this, Mummy? Who's this on the coin? Who's this on the stamp? Who's this on the telly? And it was the Queen, So it's something that we've all grew up with. So she'll be a big miss.
We've lived through some history, to be honest. And I'm just looking, a lot of people, including myself, using the photograph of the Queen presenting, the FA Cup to Jimmy Schooler in '55 at Wembley. Of course, she stopped going to cup finals after that. So. She a lot of the other royal family would take their turns at going, but probably, one of those images ingrained in our history. But fantastic servant to the realm, to the crown. Wow. We've lived in some strange times recently, and we all knew it was coming. But it still doesn't make it any less of a shock that the monarch that we've known. That I've known in my 50 years, that she's no longer with us. But incredible, mate, incredible. Yeah. But thoughts with the family, the royal family, and as I say, you don't have to be a monarchist, or a royalist to feel, that this woman at least, it was been a fantastic servant to the country, if nothing else.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it any better than that, Steve. So thanks for coming on a difficult night, and we'll try and do everybody proud. So welcome to the show, man. Been hoping to get you on since I delved into the weird and wonderful world of YouTube. You were always high on the list, but nice to have you on at last. And
no, thanks for inviting us, mate. Look, I think it's nice to have a fan base which we could probably say isn't as divided. It was. Divisions, all over the place, more divisions in the Alphabet League, in Sunday football at one point. But now there is a little bit more unification than there was. And that's thanks to the takeover, which went through, thankfully, almost a year ago. And things are on the up. You will always get negativity. You will always get criticism. You will always get people who will disagree. But, it seems as if things are pulling in the right direction. I've certainly tried my best just to ignore and to move on and just to push things. And we're all, we should all be on the same hymn sheet. The only thing we should be disagreeing about now is who Eddie Howe plays on a Saturday or a Sunday, and who we should be buying. Other than that, we should all be very happy. But unfortunately, like all football supporters, there are always some people who will twist on 21, Ben.
Yeah, very true. Wise words spoken there, Steve. So tonight, just wanted to do things a little bit different. It's usually you hosting the shows and asking the questions, and I think it's nice for people that maybe don't know you so well and don't know your background. If we could just touch on a bit of the real Steve WRAITH and kind of your past in Newcastle and previous jobs, and what I really want to touch on was what got you in for, your love of NUFC, and, where did the love affair start? So, let's let's just take it back a bit. Let's rewind it. When did you first start getting? Well, say you're affiliated with Newcastle United kind of media and things like that. You know, I'm not such on about when you first started going to matches as a child, but you know, when did? Because I'm sure you used to write for. Was it True Faith as well, or did I get that one wrong?
My love of Newcastle United came from, you know, I guess from my dad originally. My dad was a Newcastle fan, but when I was born in '72, my dad was, you know, still going to the games. But unfortunately, Gordon Lee came to the club and he sold Supermac. And when he sold Malcolm MacDonald, my dad, like many other supporters, refused to go back to the club. They were absolutely foaming. It was probably the equivalent to selling Alan Shearer and his pomp, which of course would never have happened. And didn't happen. So my dad was always black and white, but he always was fairly reluctant in pushing football onto me or my brother, my younger brother. So I had to find it my own way. And I used to work in a post office and newsagents that my grandparents owned in Wardley and Gateshead. And on a Saturday and Sunday, I'd do the papers and, you know, I'd put the supplements in the magazines and stuff. So that was where I first remember, you know, at 7 and 8 year old, you know, thinking of football. My dad always seemed to be interested in it, talking about the results. And my granddad, my mum's father, was a referee and then a referee assessor. And my granddad refereed and was a linesman at the very top level. What is the Premier League now? He used to be the First Division. And he, when I was a youngster, was a referee assessor. So he was a Sunderland fan. And he would not be allowed to do Sunderland's games because he lived in Bolton, which is, again, very close to Roker Park. So he could do Hartlepool, Darlington, Middlesbrough, Gateshead and Newcastle. But it would all depend on where the FA wanted to send him. So in those first couple of years that I started getting into football, my granddad took me to games at Hartlepool, at Darlington and then Middlesbrough. He then took us to Gateshead and I saw a full season at Gateshead in the Northern Premier League, which was a great delight for me when I think back, because the person who played the full season there was a guy called Terry Hibbert, who, of course, was the guy who used to supply the ammunition for Supermac, the Supermac, the fire back in the 70s. So Gates had won the Northern Premier League, and I saw every home game that season. Bob Toppin was the top scorer. It was fantastic. And as a kid who was brought up in Gateshead, it was great to see a trophy being lifted. My granddad then got put on the list for St James's Park in 1983. Which, of course, was the start of the second season of Keegan. And that, you know, was my main aim, to try and get to that game. I'd never been to a Newcastle game before. And I got offered the opportunity to go to watch a couple of league games. Newcastle got promoted, of course, that season. My dad wanted to go to a couple of the games, so he picked a couple. But I picked the Newcastle-Liverpool game, really because it was going to be Keegan's farewell. And essentially, it was going to be an opportunity for me to go and see that team play, but also to see Liverpool, who were like Man United back in those days. You know, they were winning everything, European Cups, etc. And it was just going to be a unique opportunity to go and see, the St James's Park as well. And that was it. I went in that day. By that stage, I was only. I'm a late comer, I guess, to Newcastle, not through any fault of my own. But that was 1984, so 12 years of age. I had to dress up because we're going in the director's box. I had hair back in those days. My mum was combing my hair, and I just remember walking into the old West stand, the old Milburn stand, and it was, the old corrugated iron stand, Newcastle United on the side. And I just remember going into the little director's room, up some stairs into the director's room. And there was a big buffet laid out on a table. There was a big tea urn with, people getting poured cups of tea by the lady in there. And I saw a few familiar faces. I saw Stan Seymour, who was the chairman at the time. I saw Russell Cushion, who was the secretary of the football club. And then in the far corner, I saw Jackie Milburn and Bobby Cowell, who were there that night, and a couple of other well-known faces from that era. And I was like completely taken aback. we went into the ground for the first time, and I was just, the noise hit me, and it was just, this was better than anything I'd ever been to, you know, Gateshead, Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, Darlington. Just an amazing feeling, mate. And we were sitting in next to the press box, and George Taylor was commentating on the game. And it was amazing. And it might not have been a league game. It might not have been, you know, a competitive game. But it was Keegan's farewell. And of course, as everyone knows, you know, after the 2-2 draw, Keegan scoring the obligatory penalty, the helicopter comes in and takes him away into the night sky. And I mean, what an introduction for me to Newcastle United.
Yeah. It's the stuff of dreams, isn't it, for a youngster to experience those type of moments. I had a little wry smile there when you mentioned Russell Cushion. He was the club secretary, did you say? Yes.
Yeah.
Funny story. It's, you know, it might be relevant to the viewers, but back in New College, Durham, back in the day, you're talking 2003, we had a friend, me and my friend Johnny Easton, we befriended a guy called Cush. That's all we knew him as, Cush. And he was a good lad, quite mild-mannered and such. And we were both massive Newcastle fans at the time. And we got chatting to him, and we didn't realise till a few months down the line that his dad was actually Russell Cushion. And first we didn't believe him, the connection, you know, what we had. I thought, no, surely not, because we weren't too familiar with Russell Cushion, but I think he was still working at the club in the early 2000s, right? Would that be right? He was still in a job then. So we kind of researched him and thought, wow, Cushion's dad's connected, man. He's one of the top boys at St. James's Park. And just a little footnote there when you mentioned him. I thought, like, it was just it was a small world to be back then, but like have a little connection just to the club via a friend. And it took us months to actually get it out of him that's who his dad was. We just didn't have a clue. So Cush, if you're watching out there, wherever you are, you know, good on you, man. Your dad did a good job. But man. It's that
was my first game, and I mean, I fell in love with the club, you know, from that moment on. And you know, it was in the days of, you know, hooliganism, of course, was rife. The NME were running riot at games and grounds around the world. My dad wasn't keen on me going to any games on my own. So the following season, I got the opportunity to go to 5 games with my granddad. But the bug was there for me, and then I started sneaking to games, and I did okay for a period until, my dad double checked with the neighbours down the street. I'd said one thing, John, my mate, had said another. We both said we're at each other's houses. Of course, we weren't, and we're both at the match. We both got caught out and both got grounded. So the following season, I only saw six home games. I got to 5, as I say, with my granddad, and managed to see one on my own before we got caught. And the following season was the 86-87, which was my first full season as a supporter, going home and away. But you ask about the media stuff, that didn't really happen until the 90s. And that was really down to the fanzine explosion, because Newcastle United in the late 80s hit rock bottom. It was, you know, going through, a poor time as far as results on the pitch were concerned. We couldn't get things right. We had good young players coming through, but we had no experienced players. And ultimately, you know, Willie McFall spent a lot of money. He bought Dave Besson, Andy Thorne, John Hendry, Glyn Hodges, and you know, we had probably the smallest front line: John Robertson, John Henry, and Mirandina at one point. But we weren't winning games. Willie McFall got the sack. Colin Sugger came in as a caretaker manager, and then we ended up with Jim Smith, and it was just becoming. You know, it was becoming a bit of a farce, really, the club. And with that came fans' complaints, people wanting to put their opinions across, and fanzines began. And I think it was probably London and then Liverpool and then Newcastle that came in with the fanzines, had supporters who had something to say. And the Mag was the first fanzine in Newcastle that I can remember. Closely followed by, me and the mighty Quinn, when Mickey Quinn had signed for Jim Smith and started banging the goals in at Newcastle. And that's where I first really, came to the attention, I guess, of Newcastle fans. I used to stand outside St. James's Park, usually down at the at the Gallagher end, sometimes opposite the Strawberries, sometimes in the opposite corner, going up towards the Milburn stand, as we call it now. And I used to just stand outside and sell the fanzine, and we used to produce it at home. There was me, a guy called Steve Cross from Scunthorpe, my dad, and my brother, and we all did a little bit. We would photocopy them. We would, I mean, how did we get photographs? We used to cut them out the Chronicle. We used to put them in the gaps that we'd left in the master copy. Then we'd photocopy each individual sheet. Then we'd fold them over. Then we'd staple them, and then we'd sell them outside the ground. We used to do 500 copies, 40 pence at the start price. We then upped it to 50 pence. But it sold. People loved it, and even though there was me in the mag, and then there was a couple of others came along, half mag, half biscuit, Talk of the Tyne, and there's a couple of others. At one point, I think there was 6 or 7 fanzines. The competition was there, but people loved it because they were all completely different. And the reason I started doing a fanzine was very simple. I wrote a letter to the mag. The mag refused to publish it because they said it was too controversial. And
that doesn't sound like you, Steve, controversial.
It wasn't that controversial, to be honest. I actually found the letter the other day and the reply from Mark Jensen, who was the editor. And if anybody's to blame for creating what I eventually became, it's probably Mark Jensen. If he just published me letter in the first place, there wouldn't have been any of this carry on.
That's it.
But you know what? I'm I just progressed, mate. It was obviously me.
Yeah.
It was obviously that was obviously the path I was destined to be on. Yeah. I believe in fate. And the rest's history. And it wasn't until the Sky explosion, which of course was 92, 93, when the media started becoming very interested in what us supporters who stood outside the ground had to say. And I guess my first big shows were all local shows. I used to do the local news, BBC, ITV. And then they had the regional budget back in those days, and Roger Thames and the lads had these programs which they would get you involved in, like Seat in the Stands or DIY TV, those kind of programs. They were either half an hour or an hour. And I ended up on there with people like Eamon Holmes, who was at the start of his career, talking about Newcastle United, which he didn't, to be on his own admission, had absolutely no clue about because he's a Manchester United fan.
Yeah.
But then you would end up with people like Doug Weatherall on there, Glenn McCrory, Gibbo, Supermac, and it just became like getting on there was becoming a bit of the norm, and that was when I realised that it got up people's noses because when I was at the match then, and this is before social media, people will come up and go, "What the hell have you got? What's your opinion? Why is your opinion more important than mine?" And I was like, "Wow, you've got to be careful what you say." You know what I mean? And that was my first lesson in life. I never had any altercations. I had people having a say, and which is fine. People can have an opinion. Never had any altercations or violence. But I realized then you've got to be very careful what you say when you're on TV or you're on the radio or you're in the press, and be very careful what you say. So the first lesson I learned was whenever I'm speaking, especially live, just say, my opinion is, don't give the opinion, because it was getting edited. You would be going, they would say, what do Newcastle United fans think? And then I would be coming on, and then it would look as if I was speaking for the fans. I'm not speaking for the fans. So, that was the first lesson I learned, mate. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that because, sometimes I feel the same. Obviously, YouTube's very new to me, but on Twitter, I am quite opinionated, but I've always just spoke for myself. Like, I've never tried to be a voice of the fans. I try to voice their, opinions. I do a lot of retweets and, happy to, promote other people's opinions, but I never try to speak on their behalf. And that's something that's always kind of knocked me a bit. I always get we won't go into it too much tonight about, when people pile on you and stuff, but a lot of it, like we've always said, people are allowed an opinion. And, sometimes when I speak, it is just that. It is just my opinion. It's not like not like I'm, like you said there, I'm not speaking for behalf of the fans. It's just so happens to be that I've got a few followers, and
it's different for you. It's different for you because you're a social media. You're like a social media creation, if you like. You've created this persona on social media, whether you like it or not, and you have chosen, because there is a block button on there, to block people, and you've got a reputation for blocking people on Twitter.
Is there a block button on there? I'll have to.
But you know what? I mean, I guess I learned that from you because you know it got to the point where I mean, and I'm sure you'll remember, I used to get into pretty heated rows on Twitter. I would reply to everybody. I tried to do it the opposite way to you. You would block people. Yeah. What I used to do was I tried to reason with people. I would get a great sense of satisfaction if I managed to turn somebody around on their opinion, either on me or on something that we discussed. You're never going to do that with everybody. But as my subscribers grew on Twitter, it just became increasingly more difficult and more difficult. And I know we're jumping right ahead here, but when it came to the takeover, it just became impossible because people knew that I had at least a link somewhere with Amanda Staveley, you know, having been photographed, and then Mark Douglas from the Chronicle at the time sharing the photograph of me sitting with Amanda and Maydad that day.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up later. We'll touch.
That made it difficult. That made it so difficult for me because I couldn't then answer all the inboxes. I had to literally put my account on a bit of a close down. But you know, as I say, you've done it differently. You've come in. You've now set this podcast up, and why not? Because, you know, your opinion is just as important as the next person's. And just because people don't like, you know, your opinion, or maybe don't like you or don't like me, then, you know, that's their choice. But, you know, there'll always be somebody who agrees with you, and there'll be plenty of people who like you, and there'll be plenty of people who dislike you. That's the way it is. And like I keep saying, it's an old saying that I've used time and time again on NUFC Matters. You put your head above the parapet, it's there to be shot at. If you don't like it, don't put your head above the parapet anymore.
Yeah, very true. It just ties in nicely with what you said. Like, it shows that some things never change. Like, even as, you know, yourself back then in the early 90s, when you're doing like local TV and stuff, and, you know, standing outside the stadium, people seeing you on these little shows and that, and you were experiencing the same things back then. And here we are like 30 years later, and we still experience the similar things on YouTube and Twitter. And it's just, you know, it obviously shows it never.
You've got to be careful. You don't know. There's no guidebook, Ben. But I mean, like, I'll give you an example. There was trouble at a particular game. I'm not going to say the game because I don't want to go back through it. But there was a trouble at a particular game. There was a flag which had Newcastle United on it, and it had, you know, Wall's End on it. And the Chronicle rang us. They went, we're just after a few words about what you think about this. And, you know, I just said, well, you know, it's never good to see the club being tied in with this kind of thing, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, I got a visit from the bloke who owned the flag. And he said, what do you think you're going on about that for? Why are you saying that? And I was like, well, because the Chronicle rang us up and asked us an opinion. I said, I tried to be, you know, as sensible as possible. Yeah, but you shouldn't be speaking about that. And I was going, right, okay, well, you've made your point and that's it. And listen, sometimes you've just got to think before you speak, you know, as opposed to think before you tweet. And that again was a valuable lesson. The guy didn't bully us. The guy wasn't aggressive. He just said, you shouldn't really be speaking about those kind of things. And with hindsight, the guy was right. But it just became more obvious to me that when you do that, you know, you can put yourself in the right, you know, position, and you really shouldn't comment on something. So, but as I say, there's no guidebook to it. You know, you've just got to be careful. And I've given advice to a lot of people over the years who've either got into this kind of thing, or got into fanzines, or got into a bit of TV and media, and I just give them the same advice as I've spoken about on here tonight.
Yeah, man, great, wise words again there. Let's move it forward a bit. Let's take it to the entertainers era. What were your thoughts and your experiences back then? The nightlife and such. Did you ever go out on the tune and you know, bump into players? You know, I heard back then they used to go to certain, was it Julie's or something like that?
Well, I worked on the doors back then.
Of course.
I mean, I was a doorman in Newcastle for 18 years. And I mean, that's how I ended up building up such a good relationship with a lot of the ex-players, because I looked after a lot of them going out and about. I was head doorman at Chase on the Quayside, which is now a Vika. I was also working at C Nightclub. I worked at Masters, which is Tuk Tuk Palace. That was one of my very first door jobs. But yeah, I looked after a lot of the lads. I got on well with obviously the local guys like Lee Clark, Steve HOWAY, David Roach, you know, and Steve Watson. And those guys were regulars on the scene. And when the entertainers kicked into full flight. They were bringing people like Tino, David Ginola, Philip Albert out and about. And yeah, I saw them all the time. I mean, they would usually start off on the quayside at Uno's, go for a meal, which is still there on the quayside, just along from Avica now. And then they would probably come to Chase. They would then head along the quayside, probably go to the Quilted Camel, the Red House, and then head into Julie's. Julie's was their preferred choices nightclub. As the seasons moved on, they ended up going on to see nightclub. Julie's became less of an attractive place to go to when they started going to see nightclub. But yeah, I saw them all. I mean, I've always been very respectful to the guys. Never talked out of school. Some of them got themselves into some positions. Some of them got themselves into trouble. But we always dealt with it, properly. There was nobody completely out of their head every night. It's just lads being lads at the end of the day. But I tell you what was great, the fact that they all drank as a team. I think that was what I always remembered. And I mean, having been involved in Sunday football for 20 years myself, I know how important it is to have that kind of camaraderie just on and off the pitch. And it's something which Eddie Howe's doing now. I don't expect to see Eddie Howe out on the lash down the big market with the lads anytime soon, but you can see the kind of camaraderie that he has with them, and those team building exercises, going to Dubai and stuff like that, and whatever is great. It's great to see, and that's the first time that I can remember a team being as close and as together since those entertainers' days. So that bodes well, I guess, for Newcastle trying to eventually win a trophy.
Yeah, I think it ties in nicely with, like you say, the team spirit that we've got today. It shows you that the some of the best teams are the ones with the best team spirit, and obviously we had that in the 90s, and we're trying to create something similar now. I think it's nice to hear, and I wonder if I don't get out on the tour much these days, but I wonder if any of the players do go drinking. And we used to have like Richie, who was quite close with Gail, and a few others. They used to go out together, I think. But I don't know about the current squad. I don't know if anyone's seen Bruno down the quayside yet, or is he just quiet?
I stopped doing the doors in 2013, and
yeah.
I mean, there was a good camaraderie between the likes of Kevin Nolan, Alan Smith, Joey Barton, Steve Harper.
Yeah, that was a good era. Yeah,
those lads went out as well. They like night out. Andy Carroll, of course. But it wasn't the same as the entertainers. The whole squad went out. Even Peter Beardsley, who doesn't drink, would go out. He'd almost be like the registered driver. He had to drop Keith Gillespie off a couple of times, which I think the lads tell in numerous stories. At the talk-ins. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was never premeditated, but it was a good way of networking, Ben, because ultimately for me, I ended up meeting my heroes, which was great, and then ultimately, as time went on, and I was looking for a way off the doors. I was looking to become an actor and go and study, etc. So I had to make money, and I'd done a few talk-ins for my football team, and I thought, I wonder if I can, maybe do this and make some money and do it as a living. And that's how I ended up getting into talk-ins and doing big events, because I started having a chat with the players who were then starting to retire, and they said, yeah, well up for it. Let's do it. And, the rest is history. Really got to do and work with most of my heroes, if not all of them, over the last, 20 years. And it's been a great journey. Set up a company, Newcastle Legends, did very well with that. And also managed to raise a lot of money for charity. I mean, the biggest amount we raised in one single go was by bringing the entertainers back together and raising over 54 grand for Alan Shearer's foundation. So, it's been a great journey, but it all started from, just somebody standing on the door with a business card and looking after the lads and, just being true to yourself.
Yeah, it's good. It's a fascinating story, mate. And it's like you say, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to, chat to you about that side of things tonight. It's a very interesting tale, man. Let's move it forward a bit. You touched on it just a few minutes ago. The famous photo with Amanda and Mairdad. It's obviously it's up to you how much you want to go into this scenario. But what actually happened that day? Did you know they were coming? So you knew they were coming, and then were you sat with them to liaise? They were supposed to come. They were supposed to come in the previous home game.
I was working at the time for Rafa and his backroom team, Owen Brown and Richard Green. Richard, sadly, no longer with us, passed away during the COVID situation. And Owen was, and still is, Rafa's agent. Richard was his accountant and lawyer. And they approached me when Rafa took the job full time, and said, we would like to have somebody who can liaise between us and the supporters, but who doesn't work for the football club. And I thought it was a joke. But on the day that I went to meet them, Lee Ryder was there as well from the Evening Chronicle. So I knew it was a genuine person. The guy reached out to us on LinkedIn, and I ummed and ahed, and I thought, well, what can I lose? So Newcastle Spurs, last game of the season, Newcastle relegated. They invite me to the game. I went along to the game. They said, you can bring a couple of guests. I said, can I bring me dad and my brother? That's who I go to the match with. And they went, yeah, no problem. That would be great. It'd be lovely to meet them. So went along. We were in the Heroes Lounge at Newcastle. And the game, of course, was fantastic. Newcastle get relegated. They go and beat Spurs, 5-1 and 10 men and all that. But that's how that began. And then during the summer, we kept in touch. We had a chat backwards and forwards by text. And then they said, look, the offer was genuine. We'll scratch your back if you scratch ours. All we want is if things get a bit hairy, or, if Mike Ashley's situation changes with us, then we just need the fan base to be on our side. And he says, we think you'd be all right for that kind of job. And I went, well, yeah, I'm doing it. Obviously, they knew that I was doing Fanzine and, obviously doing well on social media and doing the legend stuff, etc. And maybe that's why they approached. In fact, that is why they approached me. And I ended up going into that Heroes Lounge each and every game and sitting in the director's box with me dad and with me brother for each of those games. And it was fantastic. A unique opportunity. I wasn't getting paid for doing this job. I was just in a good position. And were there times where they needed this? Yeah. I was putting stuff out on social media, and was I being untrue to myself? No, I was saying what I believed in. I did believe in Rafa's philosophy. I did think Rafa would do well for us. I did think if Mike Ashley backed Rafa Benitez, that Newcastle United would do well and potentially, become the club that we all knew it can become. But then obviously things did change with Rafa, and it then became very clear that Owen and his team and Rafa were hopeful of a takeover. They just thought that if they could get the right person in front of Ashley, that things might change and it could become a club. Could become a club which Rafa could build, as Shankly at Liverpool described, a bastion of invincibility. And a lot of focus was on this Amanda Staveley. Now I'd heard of her because obviously she helped facilitate the Man City deal from the seller's side. And I was told that she was going to come to this game and that she was going to sit on our table. And all they wanted me to do was have a chat with her. I said, you just be yourself. You just talk there. You sit in the middle of them. You just have a chat about Newcastle United, what it is, what the club's like, what it means, what it could be. And that was it. That was my job. Yeah. She didn't turn up. She didn't turn up that game. So anyway, the Liverpool game, which is where I was photographed, I was doing the pre-match talking in the big market, and I got a text message off one of my mates that Amanda Staveley's at the game the day. And I was like, bloody hell, she's actually going to be there today. So I went up there with my brother and my dad. She was there when we got there. My dad was there as well. Did what I was asked, sat in the middle of them. We had a chat, and we had an hour before the game. We had 50 minutes at half time, and we had an hour after the game. And it couldn't have picked a better game. I think it was a 1-1 draw. The atmosphere was fantastic, which, hadn't been fantastic at previous games. And, from our point of view, it was an easy sell, if you like. I was just myself and just told them what the club could become, waxed lyrical about Newcastle. I think my passion, essentially shone through, and they went off to doorstep Lee Charnley that day. And the rest of it is history, I guess. And a lot of people said, were you in touch with them all the way through the takeover? Well, yes, we were, 100%, because they needed help and they needed to be put in touch with people. And that story will come out when Liam Kennedy brings his book out. It's he's got the full the full story. Liam will write it at some point, and I think the nice end of that book would be Newcastle winning a trophy. So there's no rush on it, but it will come out, and I'm sure it'll have the blessing of the owners, because there's nothing in there which is betraying any confidence. It's a very straightforward book that Liam will write. But I know he's spoken to me, he's spoken to Steve Hasty, he's spoken to Neil Mitchell, spoken to John Waff, who was involved as well. So from our perspective, it's and Keith Patterson. It's a story from everyone's point of view, and I think Liam will have a bestseller on his hands there.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I remember you mentioned that a while back, that he was going to write that book. Completely forgot about it. So I've been taking, having a good read of that when it's out. I'm sure it'll have some, nice bits of info in what we can't discuss tonight, and we'll save it till the book. So yeah, sounds cool.
It's just a unique position to be in. The takeover, was on a roller coaster, as we all know. And I was, 99% positive most of the way through. And the only time that I actually had any doubt was a couple of weeks before that CAC case, first hearing was held, where I was privy to a conversation that Keith Patterson had on the way down to the friendly at Rotherham. And I felt it wasn't going to happen then. There seemed to be a lot of negativity on all sides. But then ultimately, things changed, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah, man. Right, so we'll push forward into the future now. What are can I get your hopes and dreams on the future? It's like talking short term, medium term, long term. Just what are you hoping that the club can achieve? We'll start with the short term. This season, next season type of thing, and we'll go from there.
We've just got to be realistic, Ben. I mean, it's a great situation to be in the sense that we have owners who are committed to the cause and, are very driven. The Saudis are very proud people and don't take second best. So I believe that Newcastle will, sooner rather than later be up there competing. But I think we've seen it from the appointments behind the scenes that they clearly have, their eyes on developing a good academy and good youth. We've seen Peter Ramage come out today and heavily praise Dan Ashworth for what his vision and views are on taking the club forward. We know that we have issues with financial fair play. We did a show with Ben Jacobs the other day explaining that. And I think, at Swiss Ramble on Twitter did a wonderful thread, which we, quoted on our show. It just takes you through it. It shows you exactly where we need to be and how we can achieve it. And I think there will be one or two bumps in the road as time goes on. When isn't there with Newcastle United? But I think it's just, it's a great opportunity for us all just to sit back and enjoy the ride now. And this hasn't been built on sand. It's been built on concrete. And that's the difference. It's built on strong foundations. And I think the club will benefit from this for years to come. We've got, we've got an outside chance, I think, of a League Cup win in the next couple of years, though, because ultimately we've played Liverpool and Man City already this season. And the one thing that this team will take from both those games, other than the one solitary point that they got when it should have at least been 2 points, is confidence that when they play them on any stage at any time, that they could give them a game. And when was the last time you could say that about Newcastle against Man City and Liverpool on a regular basis? You couldn't. So I think that, the League Cup is where we should start looking at first. And I'm pleased that he put out a really good side against Tranmere, and I hope he does the same against Palace. Won't be a walk in the park, that game either. But I think, Newcastle will win a trophy a little bit sooner than they think. Obviously, the Saudis and the new owners are going to want to win the league. They're going to want to win and compete for the Champions League. We're a million miles away from that at this moment in time. But we've just got to enjoy the ride. And that's the key, because, for the last 14 years, we couldn't even, dream of bringing in players of the quality of Bruno and Isak and Kieran Trippier, Sven Botman, Nick Pope, Dan Burn, Matt Target. I mean, players like that coming into Newcastle United it's dreamland really again for us. And you've just got to enjoy it, Ben. And the transfer window for me is something I've avoided like the plague for the last 14 and odd years. And I only started doing the podcast during lockdown, but I've commented on Newcastle. I've done, articles for some fanzines after I'd stopped doing my own. And I hated the transfer window. I couldn't be chewed with it, mate, because it's just a farce as far as Newcastle was concerned. Now, having covered it for the full summer this time round, wow. Me and Joe Walker tried to keep a count on how many players have been linked with. I think we lost track at about 612 or something. But it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And, a lot of people who watch these podcasts or who watch people like yourself on Twitter and Sean Casey, etc., I take people in the no accounts with a pinch of salt. They're doing it because they've got a love for the club. They're doing it because they want to have a bit crack and cause a bit of debate. Clearly, people enjoy it when you've got the amount of subscribers you've got. But if you don't want to engage with people having an opinion, then just ignore them and just move on. But I've enjoyed it because it is funny, some of the stuff that people do, and I think you and Sean have clearly shown that you've got to have you've got a bit of a sense of humour with it as well.
Yeah, of course, man. I've got Sean on next week, so that'll be another interesting one on Monday.
Well, that's why I got you both on, and I got slated for having both of you on. But I mean, I think people should know by now that I don't really care what other people think. I just crack on and do what I want to do, and I'm not easily manipulated by anybody. I'll make my own mind up. I'm a grown man, and I just genuinely thought having used to on my show at that time was the right thing to do, and I'm glad I got you on. Likewise, when we did our previous stuff in lockdown, it was the right thing to do at the right time. And haven't met you like a lot of people haven't met you. I know what you're all about, and nice kid.
Yeah, cheers, man. Thanks. Man, means a lot, mate. So like I say, just touch on the transfer window before we finish here. Do you think we did enough? I personally feel we're still like 2 or 3 players short, but obviously we know it's going to be a process of evolution, not revolution. We keep hearing this line, but I do feel we were still a couple of players short. Personally, I would have liked to sign a defensive midfielder so we could play Bruno further up, and maybe a right winger that could challenge Miggy and add more goals and assists to the team. So I don't know what's your thoughts on that. Do you think we'll be all right until January?
Yeah, I think midfield will get by in January, and I think ultimately they were waiting to see what they could do with regards to a goal scorer, because we all knew before this transfer window opened that we needed a goal scorer, and that Hugo Ekitike was obviously their first choice, and they didn't get him, and the goalposts had to move, things changed. We also brought in Dan Ashworth, which we said on our podcast was probably one of the biggest signings of the summer. Because of what he's done in the past, how he changed Brighton, what he did with England. So for me, I think the transfer policy changed. They obviously took out that much publicised loan, which meant they had an increased spending. And from our perspective, Callum Wilson's injury changed things as well. There was a need to bring in another goal scorer. Wilson got off to a great start, but then next thing he's out for, we thought he was going to be out for 2 weeks. It's now a month. And we can't have any chance of competing, in the league or in any of the cups when we don't have anybody who can score goals. And that was a problem. So they pushed the boat out. They brought in Isaac, which for me is a great signing. He's a young lad. He fits the remit. Spent a lot of money on him, and I think they're probably going to bring in a midfielder, January. If not, it'll be a marquee signing next summer. But I genuinely think they will spend another 100 million, maybe in the next transfer window. I would be very surprised if they don't go out and try and bust a gut and bring another one in. Probably not January, but the August transfer window, but go out and spend another 100 million plus. They may make some different deals in January, who knows? But for me, it was a great transfer window. I don't think they could have done any better. Yeah. I really was a champion in Madison for the very first transfer window when they came in. I was delighted to see they try to go in for them in this transfer window, but they didn't get him, unfortunately. I'd much prefer Maddison than Tielemans or Harvey Barnes, I've got to say. And there is definitely those kind of places up for grabs. The midfield places are up for grabs. ASM has definitely changed my opinion on this season because, fair enough, he's been injured the last couple of games, but he's definitely changed how he's got him playing to the best of his abilities. The goal he scored at Wolves was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, there will be changes in the midfield. I've got no doubt about it. I think they would have changed goalkeeper had it not been for Darlow's injuries now forced us, into bringing in carriers. But I mean, ultimately, I think they would do that anyway. I think they would end up bringing in another strong goalkeeper to challenge Pope. So I think if you ask for marks out of 10, I would say 9 out of 10. And I think, midfield I would have done it, but they clearly couldn't because of what they had to spend on in other areas. And they'll rectify that in January or August.
Yeah, man. I pretty much agree with all that. I really want to see us sign Maddison in January. I think he'd be attainable. I think it's somebody that we could, if we put the money up, and it's going to be, you would think it would be less money than it was this summer, which is why it's such a strange one, because Maddison's he's free, not this summer coming, isn't he? But the summer after, unless he signs a contract extension, obviously.
Yes, Tielemans. I mean, Tielemans was the other one linked, and he can obviously leave for free in the summer. But I would be more kind of go for for Maddison for me. I just think he would fit in to Newcastle. Yeah. I really do think he would fit in. I think the biggest signing we've made, the Barry Venison of this team, is definitely Kieran Trippier. Because people always say Brian Kilcline was the big signing, but Barry Venison had a lot to do as well. Killer was because of who he was. He was a Colossus, FA Cup winner with Coventry. Big character in the dressing room. But Barry Venison was a bigger character. And I always feel that Barry Venison was the one who was having conversations with people in the England dressing room and, do you know what I mean, having chats with people at bigger clubs. He had lots of contacts and he played and won everything. And I just genuinely felt, that Trippier has followed in his footsteps. So it's exciting. Like I go to bed every night smiling now, just knowing that the club is in safe hands and that
it's great. It's great, isn't it?
And I enjoy doing it. I mean, I enjoy doing this. Do you know what I mean? I enjoy coming on and having a chat with people who are Newcastle fans who want to have a chat as well. And I mean, I never thought I would end up doing 7 nights a week doing a podcast, but it's because, people, and I thought, is this going to be too much of a chore? Do I want to do it all the time? But it's an hour out of my day. Chatting with people who I enjoy speaking to. Every now and then get a different guest on. Yeah. And it's just enjoyable, mate, because we've got something positive.
It's a hobby and a passion, isn't it? It's kind of the same like why we use Twitter, why we use YouTube. We love football and we want to not only absorb it, but we like to express how we feel about it too, and listen to others' views.
Diversity as well. I mean, like there's 52,000 who go at the ground, but there's millions of Newcastle fans around the world, and not everybody likes Ben, from Mouth of the Tyne. Not everybody likes Steve Wraith from NUFC Matters. But that's where people will then go and watch the lads from Loaded, or they'll go and watch Adam P, or they'll go and watch the guys from Gallagher's Shots or the Toon Review, and there's something for everybody in the Newcastle fan base out there. And I try to be supportive of them all. I do retweet, quite a few of the guys or whatever. I've had a few people on the show over the years, and I think there should be a little bit more, unification amongst the podcasts. It would be nice if people were a bit more, open to jumping on people's shows and sharing. But it's not the way it goes. Unfortunately, that's life, and you just got to accept that not everyone is the same as us. Yeah, very true. But it does make you feel more like doing these shows when the good times are here, which we're very much in the good times now. Since October the 7th last year, I think everyone has their buzz back. If you feel like going to the games more, this is something that I've been talking a lot about with my friends, and it's like, a lot of it was just tradition. It was routine. It was like Saturday, let's go to the game. Sunday, whatever. But let's just do it. Nobody actually, under Ashley, after year 14, you're getting to the stage where it was like, was your heart really in it, or were you just going just because Newcastle? That was a habit. It was a habit. Yeah. I remember going up there. I mean, after Rafa had gone, You know, I remember going up there, and you were trudging up there, and you know, the people who left, the people who didn't go back, the 10,000 people or so that didn't renew their season tickets, ultimately had a big part to play in Mike Ashley leaving the club. And that's why it's so hard on those people who now don't get their season tickets back. You know, it was a lottery for people getting season tickets. Those people will quite rightly, I guess, in a lot of ways, feel hard done by. But you know, the bottom line is, if you didn't renew your ticket, you're not going to get in. And there was no fair way of giving people a chance to come back. But those people did 100% make a big difference, because the ultimate thing with Mike Ashley is money and profit. And if he starts getting hit in the pocket, he goes, you know, and that's, you know, we drove him out eventually. It had nothing to do with people being dressed as vicars and walking up to the ground. All played its part. People walking out in the first minute, people walking out in the 90th minute, people chucking paper aeroplanes. I guess as a whole thing over that period of time, it all played its part. But there is no doubt in my mind that the reason that he left was because people started walking away, and it was affecting them financially. COVID as well played its part, of course. You know, the fact that, you know, there was, you know, no supporters going into the ground. A small part to play, I guess, again. But, you know, it's the uncertainty over whether football would ever be the same again, I guess. It all played its part. And the fact that the Saudis were willing to pay £350 million for a club, which he only paid, what, 150 million for?
Yeah, that's it. And especially, like you said, after losing income through the COVID, period, when he was losing money on the gate, it couldn't have come at a better time, could it? It was like, you know, it was like a perfect storm to finally get him to sell up, and eventually he did, man. And here we are, you know, nearly a year later.
And things will change. Things will change massively, because, you know, everybody's discussing it now. We know the sponsorship. We know. Look at the sponsorship that they got with Noon. It's, you know, it's more than they're getting for the Fun 88 on the front of the shirt. Yeah. So we know that, you know, that they've now cancelled the Fun 88, and we're going to get a new shirt sponsor. And that shirt sponsor coming in will help us massively with financial fair play, as will a stadium sponsor. And, you know, if they come out and say, we want to call you know, it's going to be at St James's Park, but a big sponsor name in front of it, but this is what's going to come in, and, you know, this is how it's going to affect the financial fair play, then suddenly Newcastle will, you know, be in a position where they could probably spend 300 million in a transfer window. I don't think they'll do that, by the way. I think they'll continue to go down the same road, where they're very careful and judge each transfer as they have done, careful who they bring in and whatever. But I also think they'll be very careful with their wage structure. They will have to up it eventually. They will have to then go to the next level. But yeah, they will. Don't think they'll do that overnight.
No. Yeah, man. Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Like it was touched on at the start, it was a difficult decision. Obviously, with the Queen's passing today, it's a big moment in everyone's lives. And I think we did the right thing. I want to dedicate this to the Queen. For everybody that she meant a lot to. She will be missed. And it's like I say, it's a tough night, but I just want to thank you once again for coming on. And
thanks for having us, mate. And good luck with it. As I say, know, never hesitated in coming on, mate, because it's nice to be able to come on and give people support, and just keep doing what you're doing, mate. And just ignore the haters. And I think Kenny Ranson said, get yourself some moderators. You do need a couple. You've got to get some trusted people in your chat. Kenny's one of them. Give Kenny a spanner. He'll look after you.
We need to make some money first. Then I might have a big cash to pay the moderators off, So. We'll see. We're a long way away yet, unless someone wants to work for free. But so we'll see how it goes. So we've got Al Walid on tomorrow night, which looking forward to getting his.
He's a good man
from Saudi. I know he's one of your good friends, and I just thought it'd be nice to delve into the Saudi kind of fan base, and there's no better place to start than Al Walid. So, really looking forward to that. And then, like we said, we've got Sean Casey on Monday night. So, we're going to keep these shows going over the course of the season. And, hopefully people will like and subscribe if they enjoy the content. If they don't, well, it's fine. Just keep on scrolling. That's all good, man. Right, so we'll leave it there, Steve. thank you once again. And thank you to all the listeners and subscribers out there tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you got to see a bit more of the real Steve Wraith and a little bit more of the real Burnsy too. So, Steve, thank you very much, mate.
Take care, mate.
Take care, mate. See you later. Thanks, guys. All the best. Ben from Mouth of the Tyne. See you soon.